Hey there YouTube, it's Bobby aka Paginator, and I'm here with my reading wrap up for the month of April. So I am going to start with my official 5 that were my official TBR and go from there. We have up first Lost in the Neverwoods. This is by Aiden Thomas, who also wrote Cemetery Boys. This is a Peter Pan retelling, but very, very modern, like set in our own world. And much of it is very realistic, except for Peter Pan's shadow has come away from him again, and the shadow is a very dark, very evil character and pretty scary. I gave this one a high 3, almost 4 stars. There were just some elements that I struggled with a little bit, but overall it was a really nicely done story, and I have a student who's super excited to read this because they love Peter Pan and stuff, so I'm excited to take it to school for my kiddos to read. Next we have Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. I actually listened to it on audio. I found it through my local state library service and listened to it as I was driving on a couple of different weekend road trips and things, and I really, really enjoyed this. This is about a witch whose sister is brutally murdered, and she kind of makes a deal with a demon, like a prince of hell, and all of the princes are named after one of the 7 deadly sins, and she makes a deal with Wrath, and she is trying to solve her sister's murder and get revenge, but also there are some other things going on in these underworlds, and she's trying to help with that as well. It is very dark, very spooky. I don't think I'm going to put this one in the middle school library because there were some things that were like just really, really dark, and I don't know that I have some kiddos that are ready for that kind of thing, especially dealing with demons and stuff. And if they beg, I might let them, but a lot of my kids aren't super like book nerdy into researching their own books and that kind of thing. So I think this one's just going to live here. Plus, look at how pretty it is. Do I really want kids to get their hands on this? Probably not. But it was a good read. I gave this one 5 stars. Up next, we have another 5-star read. This is Firekeepers Daughter by Angeline Booley. This is another one that's also not going to go into my classroom library because there's some teenage drug use and sex, and there's a rape scene and stuff in here. But it was a beautifully written book. I adored it. Really enjoyed reading it. It is a Native American story set in modern day on a reservation up in the Upper Peninsula in Michigan area, very close to the Canada border. And our main character is not an officially enrolled member of the tribe, and her father has passed away. My phone's ringing in the other room. That's so annoying. Nobody calls me all day long, and then when I sit down to film, the phone rings. Go away. Anyway, back to the book. Not only does this book have a beautiful cover, but beautiful stories. There are some really interesting plot lines, and I don't want to dive too deeply into it because I kind of feel like if you want to read this book, you should just take the journey on your own. Read the little online synopsis on Amazon or Goodreads or something, and then just go for it. There were some plot twists and things I didn't see coming, and it was really joyful to experience this character's journey. And I don't know if joyful is the right word because there's some heavy, like, hard-hitting stuff in it, but I also learned so much about the culture of this area, particularly Native American culture, and really loved how elders were used. Elders are very respected and honored in this tribe, and there's a particular scene where the elders kind of come to the rescue of our protagonist, and it's just awesome. I loved it so much. So again, it was a 5-star read for me, and I would highly, highly recommend it. Up next, I needed a book that had a Jewish main character but was not set in wartime, so I picked up Kissing in America by Margot Robb, and I had thought that maybe I had read it before, but I wasn't sure. As I got to like the second to last chapter, I thought, oh, this kind of seems familiar, but throughout the entire book I was thinking, no, I haven't read this. So I honestly don't know whether this was my first or second time through this book. I didn't love it. I gave it 3 stars. There were some things that bothered me about the main character. She's a teenage girl, and she manipulates her friend in order to get them to go on this cross-country trip to see a boy that she likes. And also her mother is a really problematic character. I really struggle with seeing mothers or fathers in books that do not deserve to be parents. And maybe her mother really does, and maybe there's something redeeming about her, but we don't see it in the book. Just all of a sudden the character's okay with her mom at one point, but I don't like that. Years ago, I used to work at a school for students who were in trouble with the law. And I saw, this was like over 15 years ago, but I saw some examples of parenting that, well, to put it nicely, those people shouldn't have been parents. And they did irreparable damage to their children. But now, of course, I don't work with those kind of kids anymore, and I'm really blessed to work with the kind of kids and families that I do now in a small town community. Can't say everyone's perfect, but it's a much better situation than what I had before. Anyway, I had a problem with the mother in this book, and we'll just leave it at that. And then my last one on my official 5 for the month of April is Wondersmith. This is the second book in the Morgan Crow series. I really enjoyed it. A lot of times second books in series struggle a bit. I didn't feel like I struggled with this one. I gave it a high 4-star, almost 5-star. And probably I could have given it a 5-star and felt good about it. I sometimes would find myself zoning out while I read, and maybe that's just on me, not on the author. So maybe I'll like readjust my rating. I don't know. Anyway, in this sequel, Morgan is taken into the Wondrous Society and allowed to go to school, but she's only allowed 2 classes because everyone's super afraid of Wondersmiths, and she is taught in one of her classes, she just spends the entire time learning about how evil and awful Wondersmiths are, and then her other class is the geography of the city and how to navigate. And in this city, there are really interesting things. There's one neighborhood that's sinking. There's another thing that they have that are these types of streets, and they have certain degrees of danger to them. Like some, like the street itself will play a trick on you. Others, you could get killed. Like they talk about one in the book that literally turns a person's body inside out, takes all the organs and muscles and everything and puts them on the outside of their body. So of course I would kill them. So there's lots of interesting elements and exploring the world in this book, which I really enjoyed. And of course we have Fenestra, the giant cat who's very grumpy, and I just love her. She's snarky and sassy, and just I love her. And Morgan makes some friends her own age, which is really great, and she just continues in the world of the series. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil things, so there we go. Next, I have a book that I read for my college class on writing for young adults. This is I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter. You can see here it was a National Book Award finalist, and this book is beautiful. It was another 5-star read for me, and even though it's not appropriate for my middle schoolers to read, I would give it to a high schooler, no problem. Our main character is, I gotta remind myself of her first name. I always forget them. Julia. And she feels like her older sister, Olga, who tragically passed away, was the perfect Mexican daughter, and she will never, Julia, will never live up to her parents' memories of her sister, and can never do anything right in the eyes of her parents. Her dad's kind of like this zombie who comes and goes from work, sits on the couch and drinks a beer when he's home, and then goes to bed, like doesn't engage with her much, and the mom is constantly in criticize mode. That triggered some things for me because, you know, moms and daughters have weird relationships. But anyway, there are some things that Julia does that are causing her to self-destruct, and I was worried for her throughout the story, but without spoiling things, I will say things look much brighter for her in the end. So it's a beautiful book. and a lot about family relationships and the expectations we put on kids. So I really enjoyed it a lot. Then I only really have one other book to talk about. This was an audiobook that I read, and I don't physically have a copy of it here, but I can insert a picture. It is Space Case by Stuart Gibbs, and it is a super fun middle school mystery set on the moon. Like a murder mystery set on the moon. Awesome. So in this book, it's at some point in the future, and there are people living in a space station on the moon, and our main character is a young man who lives there with his parents and sister, and they have to go to school, of course, but he talks a lot about what life is like living on the moon. For example, I don't ever want to go to space just based on the description of how you go to the bathroom. I'm not going to go into details here because it's disgusting. But anyway, a murder happens, and he has to convince everyone that, yes, it really was a murder and not an accidental death, and they need to solve it. I mean, what a great idea, a murder on the moon. That's just fantastic. And Stuart Gibbs, if you don't know, is he's a really great author for middle grade books. His series Fun Jungle is amazing, another mystery series set in a jungle, and he has other series as well that are just really great. So definitely check him out if you're looking for a middle grade read. And I believe that's about it for the month of April. So I guess I'll wrap this up. How did you guys do with your April reading? Was there anything that you read that you really loved or would like to recommend? Hit me up in the comments below if you have anything to share in that way. And otherwise, I will sign off and wish you a wonderful, magical, and bookish day. Happy reading. Adios.